Next up, we've got posability. So, I'm pretty sure you already know how this game is gonna play, but for those that don't know for whatever reason, despite the fact that this is again like the bajillion time I'm looking at these figures, well, let's go over it. So, first of all, the jaw on the HIYA is on a hinge, and it can close up, open about that far, and the tongue inside it also has a hinge. Now, do keep note that whenever you have it closed like this, and then you go to close the jaw, it will sink back up to the roof of the mouth. I mean, it's kind of obvious considering the fact that, they can't just sculpt it through. It's just going to look weird whenever he opens up his mouth. So, yeah. But just to let y'all know, and for the head, there's a ball joint right where the head meets the neck, and it has a fair amount of range for what it is. You can kind of go side to side, up and down, forward and back, all that good stuff. It can also kind of rotate. It's not really meant to rotate, but it's got a decent amount of rotation. But you might think that, oh, there's multiple neck segments. Not true. Basically, what's happening here is, if you're familiar with the neck of Godzilla in 1994, that figure had a sleeve that had one big rod that went from the base of the neck all the way to the top of the head, and the neck piece was actually just a free floating piece. That's the same thing going on here. Only difference is that there is multiple neck pieces. So this can accommodate for much more fluid of motion. See how the gills move in unison? That is beautiful engineering, my friends. Back then though, they actually had like a hinge at the head, which kind of allowed it to do like the same thing, kind of looking up, but there was like a big gap there. But now it's fixed up for this version, which I'm actually really happy they did. Here at the shoulders, we're gonna take a look here. The shoulders here we can move up and down, forward and back. It's very, very well done, honestly. And even if it kind of gets a little less mileage than one would expect, it's got a fair amount of range. You can get a good rotation out of it, even though mine's quite still stiff. Oh, there we go. A bit more freed up now that we do that. But it can still go up and down, forward and back. Elbow can still bend in about, let's go ahead and say that far out. Bend about that far in, and it can also rotate. The wrist can also bend and swivel. It's on a ball joint, so you get a fair amount of range there. No swivel hinge, surprisingly, on the wrist, like they would do with the NECA ones back in the day. And I feel old saying back in the day. Also, it has a very well done waist joint. Not like the best range, because at a certain point you get like a gap there. It is noticeable, but then you can just kind of close back up. Godzilla's not one to use his waist anyway. I say that, and then they make Godzilla skinny in the next movie. It's just why? Why, bro? And then, you get like a fair rotation, side to side, forward and back. It's there. It's just not as prevalent. Coming on down to the thighs, we've got a bit of a fair amount of movement here. We can spread out to the side, kind of close in. It's similar engineering to that of the Monster Arts, but takes inspiration from the NECA as far as like how the legs are really executed, as they can actually roll inside the joint, but also at the same time kind of go out of it, which is something that NECA and Monster Arts can both do as well as can also rotate a fair amount in there, so you kind of get him to kind of cave in a little bit, do that. The knee is on a double joint, a little bit of a double joint right there. Very decent range, can also not really swivel, I think it's just a hinge, but the ball joint at the foot is really, really well done, honestly. Kind of got a very tight swivel, but the swivel is there. You just gotta know where to look for it. And of course, moving you along the way, the tail. 9 segments of ball joints, not the most range in the world, but again, for what articulation is here, is really well solid. I feel like it could have looked up a little more, because this is as up as it goes. But but other things like looking down, going to the sides, you get a really good amount of range. So as far as the range of articulation goes on this Godzilla, it's honestly really good. Next, let's start off with the Playmates Battle Roar, which I can't take this thing seriously when it all just looks like is some deranged penguin looking up to the sky and seeing that one National Geographic helicopter recording their next documentary on the next one about global warming, I guess. So, yeah, there's no articulation in the head whatsoever. There's no head swivel, thankfully this time, because I don't want to be clickbait into thinking, oh, a big swivel. Psst. It's a square peg. There's a movable jaw, but it doesn't really, it's spring-loaded. I was about to say spring-locked. If you know, you know. But no, it's not meant to articulate, but we'll get back to that in another category. The arms are on swivels, and we'll be able to rotate all the way around, which I do so like. And maybe not so much this arm, but it can get about of range. The legs here, this one can kick up about that far up, that far back. And this one can kick much more higher up and a bit more further back. And can swivel at the feet. Nicely done. And can actually rotate and articulate this whole big ball joint of a tail. Like, if you actually take a look at what it actually looks... Whoa. Almost hitting everything. Like, camera stuff. This is one big ball and socket. Like, also, this straight up looks like a pipe. Yeah, it looks like a pipe. So, you can get a really good amount of range. You know, getting all that side to side, forward and back, up and down. It's kind of like a joystick in a way. But there's nothing else from here to here. It's just all one solid piece of rubber. So really, the Battle Roar Godzilla was never about posability, but let's go ahead and end off this category. I can definitively say that the HIYA Godzilla definitely has a lot of good posability, reminiscent of that of the NECA monster arts of previous years. And even then, you know, it's even just gotten to the point where it's so incredible what they were able to do for only $50. $50 gets you this. Do I honestly think that, you know, that Monster Arts should look at what HIYA is doing? Yes, because I'm about to drop something, and I know this has nothing to do with Monster Arts. Monster Arts should have ended their line, in my opinion, because what are they releasing nowadays? Just repaints and re-releases nobody asked for of worse quality? Minus Goji looked absolute garbage. The Final Wars figures looked mediocre. And I mean, the Showa Godzilla looked cool. The 72 one. But that's really about it. Or 71, 72, and whatever. But with that being said, what is here is really good. The HIYA is really well done. The Playmates does what it can do. I definitely think, again, it should have not been in a pre-done pose. Because, like, come on, dude. Just give us, like, a Godzilla figure that roars that's not in this goofy position. Make it like this. It's like a button that seeps into the skin and then you press it and it roars. I feel like that would have been a lot better. But yeah, that wraps up the articulation section.